Let's talk about physical intensity targets and use our friends at Formula Pharma as an example. So you can see here that one last option that they want to consider is a physical intensity target for scope 3. And in this case, they want to see if that physical intensity target might be a better option for their business than absolute contraction for scope 3. Across the top of the screen, you can see that the scope 1 and 2 target is the same and would require a 42% reduction across the target time frame in line with the 1.5-degree scenario. For scope 3, Formula Pharma first needs to calculate its physical intensity. To do so, they take all of their applicable scope 3 emissions, which are from purchased goods and services and upstream transportation and distribution, and divide it by the total production in tons. So they get an intensity unit of 38.5 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per ton of product. Once they have that value, they apply the SBTI criteria and find that they need to reduce their physical intensity by 51.6%, which means they need to reduce from that 38.5 to 18.63 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per ton of product for their intensity. To compare this to an absolute reduction target, Formula Pharma can convert its physical intensity back to an absolute intensity figure by multiplying the target intensity figure with the projected production. And so Formula Pharma had an estimated 1.8 million projected product volume. And with this, we can see that if they were to set their physical intensity target, it would be equivalent to reducing absolute emissions by only 11%. If you remember from the absolute contraction approach, that scope 3 reduction percentage would be 25%. So when you combine that with their scope 1 and 2 target setting, it would actually look at a total reduction of only 24% across all 3 scopes. On the bottom of the screen here, you can see the proposed target wording, which says that Formula Pharma commits to reducing absolute scope 1 and 2 greenhouse gas emissions by 42% and scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions from purchased goods and services and upstream transportation and distribution per ton of product by 2030 from a 2021 base year. That per ton of product clues you in to see that this is an intensity target. There are a few pros and cons with this type of target. It definitely provides greater scope 3 flexibility to account for things like business growth, which is why many companies choose this option. You can see that it accounts for that business growth by having a lower absolute reduction percentage. But this type of target can be more difficult to track and communicate to stakeholders. And physical intensity targets are a little bit less preferred by NGOs because it may not meet the desired absolute reductions needed to mitigate climate change, but it's still accepted by SBTI and something that you consider. Thanks for tuning in.